States, you addressed a member of the African-American race as a nigger. Is it possible that you have forgotten that act on your part?
No, it's not possible.
Are you therefore saying that you have not used that word in the past 10 years, Detective Furman?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman?
That's what I'm saying, sir.
Mr. Cochran, defining moment in the case?
Yes, I think so. I think, Bob, I think that Lee Bailey did an outstanding job. You remember the pundits at the time said, gee, Bailey failed or whatever. But he did a great job. Let me say this one other thing, Montel. I had particularly picked Bailey for that particular position because I wanted to de-escalate the racial thing. All my career, I'd been dealing with police officers like Furman. But when it came time, I said, you know, it's better if Bailey does this than I do this. And for a real reason, I did that. Bailey did a great job. He didn't know about the tapes at that time either.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Yes, no, Thurgood Marshall was a hero of yours, and I know you're also involved in financing the movie Get on the Bus. Yes. What message would you want Clarence Thomas, if he was to go see it, to get from that?
Well, I think Clarence Thomas should try to go back and see his roots. I think it's important that when you work your way up to the Supreme Court, when he went to Holy Cross by virtue of affirmative action, you don't turn your back on that, that people helped him along the way, and he's got to remember that. I just hope he'd remember his background and bring some compassion to his decisions. In addition to, you know, legally he's a smart man, but bring some compassion to what he's doing and remember who he is from whence he came.
So if that was one defining moment, let me ask you, was this the other defining moment? Take a look at this tape.
This was the defining moment of the trial. And remember that they spent a lot of time on DNA evidence, and they talked about how they were going to link O.J. Simpson up. When Darden made this mistake, we can call it that, we would have done it probably anyway. We knew those gloves would not fit. They weren't his gloves. This was the defining moment. It was about 4:35 in the afternoon, and I remember thinking, we're going to win this case because the gloves didn't fit. And they could try to say all they wanted to, but those gloves didn't fit. They were too tight, and those gloves were the exact same size that day in court as they'd been on June 21st, 1994, when they measured them. So make no mistake about it. It had nothing to do with the weather.
You know, there's been speculation that you tricked him into doing this. You kept making comments to him under your breath. You kept saying things on the side. You almost talked about his manhood. And
well, we didn't trick him into it, but he's a very nice young man. I like him a lot. I wish him well, and I also wish him some wisdom. But what happened was, what happened was, quite frankly, well, Bailey went over to him and said, now, you know, if you're any kind of a man, he used some other words, you'd have him try on those gloves, because if you don't, we are going to. As soon as he got back up, Your Honor, we want to do it. And the one rule you learn in law school and other places, don't ask a question if you know the answer, and don't engage in an experiment if you know the answer. And the reason why it was so critical, it was visual, you see. Everybody can remember that. And it really, they spent the rest of the trial trying to explain that. Well, it was the weather, it was the snow, it was wet, all those things. And it didn't make any sense. And it just didn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. Let me give this question. Yes, sir.
Those gloves were soaked in blood. Yeah, they were the same size as when they were measured when they were originally bagged.
Right.
But don't you think if leather is soaked in blood, it's going to shrink?
No, that was exactly what the prosecution tried to say. And we had Herb McDonald from New York State soak the gloves in blood, and they did not shrink. Those are, remember, they were very proud of these gloves. They're Eris Isotoner from Bloomingdale's, and these are these expensive gloves, and expensive gloves, I presume, don't shrink. I said, we live in California, we don't wear gloves. So I was asking people, I asked Chuck and Newfield, I said, do gloves, are these disposable gloves? Is that the idea we're supposed to have? I presume you wear gloves for more than one winter back here in the East. And sure enough, they did not shrink. He soaked them, and they didn't shrink.
All right, let me take a little break. We'll be back right after this. Things to say about you, and especially some of the other attorneys. Everybody has a book out now. Lee Bailey, I'm waiting for his book to come. I haven't seen his yet, but you know, Mr. Shapiro said some things in his book, and I just wanted you to know what he said. I'm convinced that the majority of people who would have voted the way this jury voted, based on this jury, what this jury heard, based on the following law, that there was reasonable doubt. But my feelings from the beginning was that the race card should not, or he just said race should not and would not be an issue. I told Johnnie Cochran my feelings, and Johnnie said, Bob, don't ever say never. So he basically said, and also he basically said that you're the one who came up with the entire idea.
You know, he has amnesia, and you know, I feel badly about that. He was the first one to bring that up, and he basically forgot that. And you know, I understand. I understand.
What did you think about Mr. Kardashian, Robert Kardashian, on Barbara Walters, and the whole thing about, you know, being an attorney and privileged information supposed to stay with your attorney? He made comments that he said that you, Johnnie Cochran, had doubts about O.J. Simpson's story about where the cuts on his fingers came from. And he had doubts about the fact that Simpson could remember almost everything in his life, but he couldn't explain how the cuts took place. This is what he said about you.
I was absolutely astounded by that interview. First of all, it's untrue. First of all, you have a duty as an attorney not to ever reveal confidences of your client. I have never, ever expressed any doubts about Simpson's guilt to anyone, ever. Any of those books who've said that are absolutely flat out wrong. I've asked questions about things as any lawyer would, but I never expressed any doubts. And I was really disappointed in Robert. That book that they've written should really be called The Enemy from Within, more than anything else.
Please, can we do this? Let me see this tape again with sound. I'd like to see this tape with sound as we set it up, because this to me, I'm watching the trial. I was shooting a series called Matt Waters at the time the decision came down. Take a look at this decision, and I'll tell you my comment afterwards, and watch Mr. Kardashian's face.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury? Mrs. Robertson.
Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
He's one of his attorneys. He didn't even turn around and say congratulations.
No.
Now, what was that look about? Because I tell you, I made some stink about that on my show. I did this after. I didn't do one thing about O.J. during the entire trial, but when it was all over, I said, kind of telling when a man looks like he's in shock and he's the one who's fighting the case.
It's very interesting, you know, and I didn't think about him very much at the time. I was so engrossed myself at that moment, as you could tell. We were not acting, and those who say O.J. was acting, well, you've seen his movies. He's not that good an actor, actually. But Kardashian, I'll tell you, it's very hard for me to understand that look on his face. He looks stunned. He looks
shocked. He looked like he was waiting to hear guilty, and he didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, Bob Shapiro had thought it was going to be guilty. He leaned over to O.J. when Judge Ito had the verdict forms and says, it's going to be bad news. You're going to be convicted. I said, well, you knock it off. Because by then I saw in the jurors' faces, when the jurors walked in, when they look at you, and one of them smiled, I said, you're going home today. That's when we first knew it.
Okay, I got to take another break. When we come back, well, I'll tell you what, let me do this on the way to break. Do we have that tape of when Christopher Darden was on our show? Let's take a look at this. I want you to respond to this when we come back from this break. Because I asked Chris a couple questions about you. One particular thing that you said to him during the trial, and it was about using the N-word. And here was his response to that.
Cochran almost, well, he didn't almost, he said, I want to apologize to African Americans because of a comment that you made.
Correct.
That was almost defining.
That was, you know, I write about that in the book. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you know, I should just get up and just give him a right cross right in the jaw.
Sure.
And, you know, he says that playing the race card, to not have played the race card would have been malpractice. But that doesn't mean that it isn't still immoral. And I think it was immoral, and I think that it was unnecessary. I think that that African Americans, you know, we're a nation within a nation in a sense, and I think that our nation has suffered image-wise as a result of this verdict and as a result of this man's trial tactics.
Today, let's make an easy scratch pie.
Easy? We'll show 'em easy. Just unfold, fill, and bake.
For pie crust that's now flakier than ever, Pillsbury refrigerated pie crust.
It's as easy as...
Get a little closer.
There's one antiperspirant you can trust when you're extra, extra close. Arid Clear Gel. The one clear gel that gives you clear, clean, arid double X protection to help stop perspiration before it turns into embarrassing odor. And when you help stop perspiration and odor, who knows what you might start? Arid Clear Gel, a fresh, clean way to get a little closer.
Meet the proud creators of Post Waffle Crisp cereal, harnessing good old-fashioned waffle know-how to make sure every bite of Waffle Crisp tastes just like Grandma's homemade waffles and syrup. And how?
You'll love my Waffle Crisp.
Cerebral palsy, brain damage alert.
The birth of your child can never be too safe. A medical mistake may have caused your child cerebral palsy or brain damage. Find out free. Call the Spectre Legal Team, 1-800-626-2100. Call now regardless of your child's age. No fees or expenses unless we get money for you. We've collected millions and millions for the injured. Find out what we can get for you. The Spectre Legal Team, 1-800-626-2100.
Remember when a candy bar used to cost a dime? Nowadays, it seems like you have to use a credit card to pay for just about everything. Unfortunately, credit cards are getting more and more homeowners in trouble. But the Money Store can help you consolidate all of your high-rate credit cards and other loans into one low monthly payment. All it takes is just one phone call, and you could be on your way to saving hundreds each month. You can't buy a candy bar for a dime anymore, but you can call the Money Store toll-free at 1-800-LOAN-YES.
Williams Show, you are the witness. You'll see some of the most shocking video ever recorded of crimes as they happen. Shocking crimes caught on tape on the next Montel. Yes, ma'am, you had a question.
Yes, I'd like to know what his relationship with Marsha Clark is today.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a minute. Hang on. I want to go back to Chris Darden. I'll get that one in a second. But tell me what you thought about what Chris had to say.
Well, you know, it's unfortunate. He again used the words race card. Chris fell into so many traps of the media. First, I didn't play any race card. He, of all people, should understand that. He fell into that. As I said, I'm fond of Chris. I knew him well before the trial. I am the one who told Chris Darden not to take Mark Furman. I said, you've got to live in this country afterwards. When he said that African Americans would hear the N-word and would become so biased they couldn't function, that was offensive to all African Americans. He just forgot who he was. And I took it upon myself to say I apologized for him and everybody else, because that was wrong. And I still believe it was wrong. And we just differ about that. I didn't play any race card. I dealt with the facts. He runs around talking about moral and immoral. It was immoral that they rushed to judgment. They embraced this man. If you take a snake to your breast and he bites you, you can't later complain about that. That's what's immoral. When I had a witness that I didn't believe in, or that was a problem, like Marianne Gertjes, or even Rosa Lopez, whom I happen to believe, but people thought she wasn't telling the truth, I didn't call them. They called these witnesses, and they paid the price for it. So people understand what happened in this case, not what the media tells you. You look and see what the facts are.
So since she asked it, what about Marsha Clark? Because, well, I think Mr. Shapiro made it, or was it Mr. Bailey? Shapiro made the comment that, you know, you were constantly flirting with Marsha Clark with those little sidebars. We all thought there was business being done. And you and Marsha were...
Well, there's always like this gallows humor where Marsha Clark has a great sense of humor. And we would laugh about things. And it was interesting. We were all started out, that's early on, obviously. We weren't speaking like that at the end. But that picture was taken probably in January or February. But basically, I like Marsha Clark. I think she's a fine lawyer. She's a tough adversary. And I have a lot of respect for her. But I was told after a short period of time by two people, knock it off, stop fraternizing with the other side. One was my wife, the other was O.J. Simpson.
O.J. Simpson.
And I did.
Okay. Well, now, Mr. Shapiro... Well, I'll get your question and I'll ask another. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Your book essentially states that Mr. Shapiro didn't have a clue setting up the defense. I was wondering, if he didn't have a clue, how come he was kept on once you started the trial?
It's a very good question. It was many of us wanted him to be gone at the time. But O.J. Simpson is a very shrewd person. O.J. Simpson said, look, if we don't trust him, it's better to keep him close than have him out there. And he was absolutely right, because by the time we got to the end, he had that interview with Barbara Walters the night before the verdict. And so, but we kept him close until that time. We probably saved ourselves a lot of pain by doing that.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to break again, and I have something else we want to do with you, because somebody here wanted to talk to you for a second. But before we go to that, if O.J. didn't do this, I am sure that you have spent plenty of time speculating, thinking about this, trying to figure this thing out, even in your own heart of hearts.
Yes.
If he didn't do this, who did it?
Okay. I'll be glad to answer.
The answer when we come back. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. If you're in the New York area, we love...
None of us were there on June 12th, so it is really speculation. But I've always felt it had to do with drugs. It had to do with drugs because of the fact, from the time that Nicole's friend, Faye Resnick, moved in with her on June 3rd, to the time of June 8th, when they had this intervention and she went to the drug treatment facility, there was it had something to do with that. Because if you use drugs and you're not working, somebody's got to pay for these drugs. And on June 12th, there was a police report which said that Sydney, the young daughter, while at the jail, told her brother that Mommy's best friend called. And after the captain called, Mommy started to cry. Every time we tried to go into looking at the drug relation or whether there's a drug relationship, we were always cut off because they always said, well, we got the right person. And that's been a real problem. And that's where we came with the theory that they rushed to judgment in this case and had an obsession to win. The investigation was not done well. And we all suffer from that now. But I think it was drug related.
Will we ever know?
You know, the trail has gotten cold. And it makes it very, very tough. And this is what happens when law enforcement don't do their jobs. You know, one other thing I should tell you? Police officers all across this country, I see them all the time, and they write and they call. A homicide detective said that this was the worst investigation they'd ever seen, the way they did it. And we all suffer by virtue of that. The lab is going to be better because they've infused money into that. But they didn't do a good job in this case. It's a real problem.
Can we, just for a second, I mean, the civil trial is going on. I know you don't want to say anything that will sway it one way or the other, but the area of evidence is different. I mean, I guess you have different constraints.
Yeah, presumption, there's a different presumption. A preponderance of the evidence is the burden of proof. And 9-3, nine jurors have to vote one way or the other.
If you had to sit here today and be a betting man, which way would you bet that the civil trial will come out?
It's really hard to do that because I've never seen the jurors. I haven't seen their eyes and their faces, and that really is a big factor. More than race to me, it's your upbringing, your background, and how you're looking at this evidence. I do believe this, that Simpson will be a compelling witness. And I think that many of the things you're seeing kept out by the judge now, the defense will be able to bring some of those things in their part of the case. So I'd have to really see the jurors. And I just say this, if the evidence remains the same as I understand it, then I think the defense should win. We'll have to see. I think also that there's going to be a period of time that Simpson won't be there because really his big battle now is trying to get his children back.
And in that battle, do you think he'll be able to win that battle?
Oh, I think so. I think he's going to win. If there's anybody else in the world who would have their children back. Do you know that the lawyers appointed to represent the children have said he should have his children? The children want to go there. Everybody. He's been acquitted. But you know one thing, if you want to really get a sense of this case, and Americans should step back and look at themselves, look at how people treat O.J. Simpson, who was acquitted of these charges. Compare how we address the alleged Unabomber or the people who are out there in Denver charged with, and they're alleged because they've been convicted, the worst act of domestic terrorism in the history of this country. Over 200 people killed. And I represent the victims in the Oklahoma City bombing case, and I'm not prejudging the case. But look at how we talk and treat them, the Unabomber allegedly, in reverent tones. And look at O.J. Simpson. Now, what do you think the difference is about that?
Well, I think it's somebody else played another race card. We'll take a little break. We'll be back right after this. Talk after the show, but I should say that Michael was in utero when his father was murdered at the hands of a police officer. And Mr. Cochran is a person who stepped up and tried to take on the police department for that. You've never even met Michael.
No, I've never.
So here's your opportunity to do so. We'll take a break. I hope you enjoyed this hour with Johnnie Cochran. We've just agreed we're going to do it again.
We're going to do it again, absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I'll get the audience back, make sure some of your questions get answered. Join us on the next Montel Warren Show.
Johnnie Cochran's book, Journey to Justice, is published by Ballantine Books and is available in bookstores nationwide. Journey to Justice is also available on audio cassette. From WMAR-TV, Baltimore, covering community commitment. This is News Channel 2 at noon.
Find out why generations of the faithful flock to Bethel AME Church.
Also today, a porn shop has some Harford County folks fuming today.
And our top story of the day, a U.S. air jet is forced to make an emergency landing at BWI. Less than 2 weeks before the busiest travel day of the year, and Baltimore's BWI airport has two near catastrophic